So, welcome, Robin.
Thank you very much, Alex. Alex, I believe you're going to make me a co-host, so I'm sharing my slides.
Yes, I've got to see where you are exactly. Here we go. Just bear with me. We'll make you.
Ah, here we go.
Okay. Off you go.
Well, before I do that, another welcome from me. Very warm welcome to everyone here. It's amazing to speak to such a wonderful big audience. I admire you all greatly. I've had great contacts with community language teachers, and I do admire you greatly for the work you do. I'm Robin Maloney. I have taught 3 different languages in schools over many years. I'm retired from active teaching now. I then went to be a language teacher educator at Macquarie University, and all my research has been about language teachers in schools and kids in classrooms in schools, and to a small extent community language context also. So I'm passionate about the language learning that happens in those classrooms. Had a wonderful time last year also working with community language teachers through the SICL project. Okay, so I will just share my screen. Right. Sorry. Right. There we go. Thank you for your patience. Right, what I'm going to speak about tonight is the concept of creativity in language classrooms, and in particular, a wonderful opportunity to create creativity through task-based learning. Just before we do that, we have a slide here about our Zoom management. And we're going to be using, obviously, these slides and then some resources on tablet. I think everybody understands, please mute your audio and keep your video switched off if you prefer during the sessions, unless you wish to speak to the whole group or to me, which is probably unlikely at the moment. And we are at various points going to break out into breakout rooms for some short activities. Okay, so this concept of creativity, and I'll go to full slides. Should I? I'll leave it like that. All right. So when we think about the idea of creativity, what do you first think of? Perhaps you'd be thinking about, oh, people who can or paint pictures, that type of creativity. Perhaps you think, oh, it's people who come up with different solutions to problems. But is it also the most intelligent person? Is it just the person who gets the highest score in the test? I think research shows that it is not necessarily the child who gets 100% on the test. And it's possibly not even the kids who get 99 ATAR for their HSC. Why? Why is that? Is it something different? It's this extra ability to imagine, to create something a little bit different, an original idea, to invent something new. So what does this mean in language learning? And what exactly do we mean by creative kids? And first up, creative teachers. Do we have to be a bit more creative to create or to give opportunities to creative kids? And why should we? The benefits of offering creative opportunities to our learners include these things. And this is from research by the very famous educator Ken Robinson. He was even made a Sir Ken Robinson. He was an English researcher and education consultant. He wanted us even to create creative schools, not just classrooms, but whole school environments. He died just recently, unfortunately. I'll just slowly read these, as it's quite a busy screen, and just to assist your thinking, we'll just move through these slowly. And you can be thinking, which of these relates most to me? Which is the benefit I feel personally when I fall upon something creative? Creativity is multidisciplinary. It brings a whole lot of our different abilities together. Creativity allows you to express yourself. So one important thing we know about learning is that it's individual, and it has to be about the individual child. Number 3, creativity promotes thinking outside the box and problem solving. Number 4, creativity reduces stress and anxiety. If we're doing something that we're really engaged in and we feel safe and secure in that that's what we're supposed to be doing, it's less, and we're in control of the material, less stress and anxiety. Number 5, creativity allows you to enter your happy zone and have fun. Number 6, creativity gives you a sense of purpose. And that's very important to us. We're thinking about these as language teachers and how these benefits relate to language learning. Number 7, creativity leads to feelings of accomplishment and pride. And that's going to be important when we look at our language tasks. Creativity can link you to others with the same passion. Number 9, creativity involves your ability to focus. So having come up with that great idea, we have a tremendous ability to focus on bringing it about. Number 10, creativity promotes risk-taking and iteration, trying something again and again. And that's very important in language, risk-taking. The best thing that kids can ask you in class is, Miss or Sir, how do I say that, wanting to find the language to express the original idea. Creativity is a prerequisite for innovation. And number 12, creativity encourages us to be lifelong learners. And we'll see how that might happen through the idea of language tasks. And Ken Robinson wrote that creativity now is as important in education as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status. That's quite a big claim. Creativity pops up all the time in lists of the so-called 21st century skills in innovative, creative thinking. And we can have a big part in that. Language is a field in which it fits ideally. Okay. How do creative kids think? Or how can they be helped to think? Right? In my view, every kid is a creative kid. right? They're not superstars. They are kids whose creativity has been allowed to be produced, right, within language learning. A learning model that I really like, that was around in schools, as these models go, they come and go, but it was around a few years ago, and I really liked it. It was called, it was part of a bigger thing, but the part that I liked particularly was called Habits of Mind. And this model expressed the attributes, it's research-based, of course, 16 attributes of what human beings do when they behave intelligently, confronted with complex problems, right? And usually these 16 behaviours aren't isolated items, but they come in clusters. So here are the 16 habits of mind. At one of my previous schools, we used to write whole units of work around these habits. Explicit encouragement for kids, for example, to pay attention to accuracy or one of the other habits. But there's our one for tonight: creating, imagining, innovating. And you can run your eye down there, down those other habits. And I wonder which of those other habits might be helpful or might be good to put together in a cluster for creative language use. They're all very different, but there's some that are particularly will be used in a cluster for creative language use. So these might be some others that go with creating, imagining, and innovating. Taking risks with language. Finding humour, very, very important. And there's nothing better than to allow kids the chance to put humour into their work, wacky though it may be. Thinking flexibly, thinking up an alternative way to do something. Applying past knowledge to new situations is very important for us, for kids to realise that, oh, actually, we just learned that something that I need now in the previous unit. Or for the teacher to say, remember how we did that in the last unit? You can use that now in this task that you're doing, this film that you're making, or this game that you're designing. So that's a very important language function, to join together past and present learning. Questioning and posing problems, of course. That's a basic learning skill. All right, what about us as teachers? Here's a little warm-up task. When you go into your breakout groups, not just yet, please introduce yourselves. I know the breakout groups are quite big, but I think it's nice to be able to say hi to each other. And I want you to take this beginning of every term task. This is a very favourite task to come back to school. What did you do in the holidays? Oh no, sorry. This is our first warm-up task. Here's a paper plate. Brainstorm how many ways could you use a paper plate in a language class? What could you get students to do with it, or make from it, or draw on it, or cut it up in different topic areas? Be wild, be funny, be silly, be different. Maybe you've already used paper plates in class. Share a few silly ideas with the people in your breakout group for this first warm-up task, please. Right, if everybody likes to come back. Okay. Right, having tested out our own particular creativity, let's ponder that, or confirm our understanding that creative individuals...
Robin, sorry.
Yes.
Robin, I think we need to wait for 1 minute for everybody to come
Okay.
back.
I didn't know how to tell whether everybody's back, because normally I'd have a timer on, I'd close the breakout room. Alice, are you closing the breakout rooms?
I actually closed it. I actually closed it myself. And
all right.
It's happening.
Okay, so let's just confirm then that creative individuals try to conceive solutions differently. So applying this to a child, a learner with a language task, they will take risks and frequently push the boundaries of their own language limits, because they're going to be motivated to want to say X, Y, Z. And what I've found in being in classrooms and schools, in my school research, that this approach really does produce intrinsic motivation rather than extrinsic. That is, that kids get so enthusiastic and keen in the production of their task that they are more motivated and extend their language and put their language into active use through this process. And just a tiny bit more about the background research to this, if you need any more convincing. Jack Richards, a very famous language researcher, really maintains from his research that letting kids take a creative approach is linked to better levels of attainment. So we get better language production in kids if we can adopt some of this approach. And particularly if we make those tasks student-centered, a task that with our help, students can to some extent run themselves and direct the action. Interaction based, so it's going to involve active language skills, and open-ended elements, right? So our task is going to be an open-ended one that will allow for different interpretations. But most important, creative approach is going to be about solid knowledge, right? We don't want to waste time in our language classes. We want to know that there's very solid language learning and use going on, and we are going to have to put in quite a bit of careful preparation for it to be successful. A number of you might have heard me talk before about my favourite whole education learning model, the quality teaching framework. And I'll just very briefly mention that. This model, which again is research-based, it's been around forever, I know, but it's still used widely in a lot of primary schools in particular. It just says that there are 3 mutually supporting concepts in all good learning. The core there is our intellectual quality. And if you like, that is our content and kids' language acquisition. But that is always supported by these 2 background elements: the environment of our classroom and school, and significance. That means whether the kids think that the learning matters. Is it relevant? Does it matter to them? So to me, the introduction of creativity and task-based learning in language ticks all those three areas. It strengthens our learning environment to have happy, motivated, intrinsically motivated kids. The research shows it strengthens the language acquisition in the middle there, intellectual quality. And it certainly, to the learners, makes their learning significant. It makes it matter, and it gives it that significance. So how do we do it? How do we create this purposeful, active use of language? We're going to think of our sequence of activities in a unit as building to some kind of performance or product. That's all it consists of. It's what I'm being referred to as task-based learning. And that task will really represent the demonstration of the kids' learning, right? So we're going to write that unit and that sequence of learning exercises very carefully. And sometimes you hear this called backwards mapping. So we start with the task that we're going to offer, and then we work backwards to think of all the things that the students are going to need to perform that task really well. So that's the way we're going to construct our unit, with that goal in mind. And everything we do in that unit, or nearly everything we do, will contribute to the kids' performance. An interesting aspect that heightens kids' motivation is that if we can say that this performance or this production is going to be for some kind of real audience. Research shows that this really matters in kids' perception. So it might be that it's going to be a little video that is going to be sent to their sister school, a pal in their sister school in the target country, or in some other school that teaches a community language. Or it might be going to be published online, or it might be something that parents will enjoy, a performance that after COVID finishes, parents could come and see. There's a whole lot of opportunities there for creating a real audience for students' work. And interestingly, unlike other more traditional methods, it's going to require some social organisation. You're probably going to be working in pairs or small groups, and so it can involve some additional processes of sorting out roles, of brainstorming, of kids collaborating, and certainly extending their language in order to produce this performance. But it is going to require some additional skills and thoughts on the teachers and the kids' part. So here are some examples of some goal tasks that I've taken from real classrooms in schools. And you can think yourself, I wonder what topic area or concept area I could use that task in. So these are kind of more generic tasks, but you could adapt them to different content areas. Some sort of digital book or picture dictionary. Some sort of script for an online cartoon script. A bilingual book with illustrations. And there are so many great IT tools, most of which are still free to use in these tasks. Writing a piece for a student newspaper. Making a short film. I'm very keen on this option. I know it is a multi-skilled task and requires a lot of preparation and thoughtfulness, but it is a wonderful opportunity for kids. It doesn't have to win an Oscar. It just has to be rich language learning. A self-profile, a profile of the home or of school, using real information and you know, post-COVID, perhaps in preparation for a visit from a sister school. We always have to put that in now, post-COVID. And a multitude of role plays, of course, in all the content areas that we work in, with the raised excitement level of filming it and being able to watch it and so on. Here's a few more. Okay, I've seen kids being very happy preparing a fashion parade with descriptive narration. I've seen hundreds of kids being very happy by creating and presenting new board games, either for their peers or for younger kids in the school. Simple things like writing a dialogue and using an online thing like Sock Puppet as an avatar to present the dialogue. I've seen a school compiling a recipe book in the language, with a bit of help from parents sometimes. And I've seen a wonderful MasterChef program as quite a complex task at the end of a unit on food. And a particular role change that is very useful to do is making resources for lower level classes, which places the learner as teacher and adds a level of leadership, if you like, and responsibility to kids' work. And just in case I haven't convinced you yet, this again is from some research I did with Dr. Huiling Xu in some schools. And I just wanted to really underline for you the outcomes that we saw from these methods. So this is all about task-based learning. The teamwork that we saw in schools really speaks to the quality learning outcome of social belonging, a very important part of kids' life at school. Competitive elements sometimes that we saw in schoolwork added to the fun of the environment of the QTF. The sequenced language and the sense of progress and of being able to use language, the quality framework identifies as intellectual growth and pride, and so on. The creativity and use of ICT, there again we see the integration of skills that it brings and gives kids the opportunity to bring in other things that they can do and know other than language, or as well as language. It gives purposeful use of language is a sense of significance, that it matters, right? That I'm doing something that's relevant and exciting. Often in tasks, we offer choice. If we have an open-ended task, we're offering kids the choice to interpret it different ways. And so we're adding to a little bit of agency or power in our learners. And if we have done the planning, if the teachers have done all the planning work and we give very clear instructions, then kids can proceed with doing their task with some degree of confidence and autonomy, which is a powerful learning tool. Okay, so I'm sure I've convinced you by now of the background to this endeavour. So the first thing we have to do to bring creativity to our task is to have this idea of open-endedness and scope for kids to produce their own creative ideas of how to do this task. So we need something that allows a little bit of interpretation, and we let students tie it to their current if you like, fads or songs or quirkiness, and particularly to their IT skills. And most importantly, to bring in their sense of humour. To me, that's extremely important. So our second little task for our breakout group is this one. So at the beginning of, maybe not every term, but it's a pretty frequently recurring task, is this task: write a paragraph about what you did in the holidays. And of course, it's a valuable language task. It's quite a complex task using the past tense and a range of vocabulary of sports and leisure. And I'm sure any teacher worth their salt would brainstorm it, would scaffold, would talk about the vocab and the structures that would be needed. But still, in the end, kids aren't very excited by sitting and writing 2 paragraphs of prose about what they did in the holidays. So I want you together in your group to brainstorm 10 creative ways that students could do something like that task, but in a more creative way, but still producing rich language. And I want you to think how you could rewrite the task title to being open-ended or open to interpretation for kids to do it in those 10 creative ways. Right, off to groups for another 5 minutes.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
I can't see anyone, like no one. I don't know what happened to my screen.
Hi, Anna. Have you joined the room?
I haven't joined any rooms.
I'll try to look after that for a second. Hang on a minute.
Yes, I wasn't, I had no pop-up to join any rooms. Before I was in a room 14. Oh, there it is. Thank you.
Hi, Alex. I've just joined late.
I don't have a room either.
I'm just wondering what's happened. We'll try that again.
Yep.
Oh, goodness me.
Hello.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I've just joined late, Alex, so I don't know what room I'm supposed to be in.
Hi,
Okay.
Sylvia.
Well, that's what's happened. I mean,
Hello.
because you came late, so I'm just going to assign you to a random room. Okay, so there you go. Just bear with
Thank
me.
you. Thank you.
We'll take it in turns.
How's Sylvia?
Hello.
This is being recorded.
Hi, Alex. It's Natalia here. I was late as well, so I'm not. I don't see any room at all. So
I'll give you a room. I'm just putting people in rooms now. So just
Thank
bear
you.
with me.
Okay.
Right.
Hi, Alex. Sagesh here. I've joined late as well. Sorry.
Yep, I'm just putting people in other rooms, okay? So just bear with
Thank
me.
you.
We will get there in a second. It's taking a while because there's a lot of people who came late.
Not a problem. Thank
We
you.
will get there. We will get there. My goodness.
Sorry about that.
It's all right. And this should almost be it. And That's it. No,
Thank you.
not a worry.
Are we all back yet? Alice, are we back yet?
Closing the rooms now.
Thank
Robert.
you, Alex. Thank you. Okay. So there are another number of challenges in moving towards this kind of a program, and it's all about planning, 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 and forethought. And you can start small. You don't have to completely rewrite all your units to this model, but it'd be great to do it maybe once a term or a couple of times a year for a special experience for your kids. If you're already experienced in it, I encourage you to make every unit in this model because this is definitely the way to go. But if it's daunting to you and you haven't programmed like this before, with deliberate movement towards this task, you need to put some thought into, for example, all the scaffolding steps needed to get to the task. Right, linguistic steps, language steps, maybe social skills steps, maybe I have to think about my use of, and the kids' use of IT. Will I have to think about props, or will I make the kids responsible for that? And how will I monitor the language they're producing? How will I judge the time frame and whether their motivation will be sustained over how many weeks? How many weeks can I structure this over? And according to the age of the children, and to have that sustained motivation. Because I know also that their language achievement needs to be about weekly or even daily, that depending on your situation, short-term achievements, short-term stickers and end of class, end of lesson rewards, or of smaller achievements on the way to the bigger achievement, the task achievement. All the time, I want it to be about solid language learning and retention. I don't want to have lessons where they're all talking English about what props to use in their film. I want to keep it so that it is tightly focused, as tightly focused as possible on rich language learning and use. I'm wanting to continue with my exercises, my activities, my script practice, all the regular elements that go to building up skills in language. An excellent aspect of this that I'm sure all experienced teachers understand is the potential for language advocacy through having these products that the kids have produced. That film clip of that MasterChef performance, or that display of all the games that have been made, or the assembly performance, is a wonderful opportunity to show off the merits of your language program. I know many of us have worked and still work in situations where we need to keep promoting our work and kids' achievement in many, many school situations. And finally, just before we move to doing some of this, I just wanted to just mention this last concept, and it's linking us now towards going towards our syllabus concepts rather than topic areas. This context of understanding by design has been around for quite a while, but the interesting thing to me is this focus on deep understanding and involving kids in inquiry, right, and critical thinking and creative thinking and uncovering ideas. Now, we might think that, are there ideas in language learning? Yes, there certainly are. There's a lot of evidence that this approach of getting deeply involved in the production of a task, a motivating task, and creative use of language really deepens kids' experience in language. These are the experiences that kids remember. If you ask kids, what were the best things you did in a particular year? They will say, oh, it was the fashion parade. That was fantastic. We worked on it for ages. It was so good, they'll tell you. Or the film we made about such and such was an outstanding feature of that year. So they might have only done one TBL in a year, but that will be what they tell you was the best part of year 8 or year. All right. So if we start thinking about our concepts and where will I place? So if I want to do a TBL, task-based learning unit, I wonder where I'll place it. What concept area would it work best in? So here, this rough kind of scope and sequence, which was partly from our friend Melissa Gouldrakeley at NESA, are some of the typical concepts that we could tie in with a task-based learning approach. So early stage 1 with the focus on belonging and who am I and links to PDHPE. We're strongly encouraged to make these links with other KLA areas. So lots of very simple activities there to do with identity and interacting with others and friends. And our tasks would tend to be class tasks or joint tasks, participating and joining in. One that I really like is this one at Campsie Primary School. On the pictures there, each child received a jigsaw-shaped cutout, a blank piece of paper, and they represented themselves, the things they like or dislike, their languages on that template, that piece of paper. And they were cut such that they would all fit into each other as a jigsaw. This one here, it was done in English, it was done for Harmony Day, but it could very simply be done as a result of scaffolding those language elements of my name is and I come from and lots of information about the child. And you can see in the picture underneath, it's been cut off a bit, but the theme that year was Everyone Belongs, and this was in conjunction of Harmony Day, and you can just barely see at the bottom of the picture how all those jigsaw templates have been fitted together as a big display, a wall display of the children in the school. In stage 1, similarly, it's still about play, but bringing in storytelling and through some of these typical concepts at stage 1. I'm sure many of you are quite familiar with them. Favourites, games, numeracy, living together, and particularly the use of literacy. So exploiting a favourite book in the target language and thinking what creative things either you or the kids could think up to do with that book. I remember one of the teachers I worked with, a German teacher, turned the rainbow fish into a whole class play. She just turned a lot of it into dialogue and questions and answers that made the book come alive as a very living task. Stage 2, again, linking with different KLAs, often with PDHPE, family, neighbours. Perhaps these are the concept areas that I will place my task, and so on. and stage 3, richer language opportunities and links. Language teachers often make links with science and PDHPE with these slightly more complex topics that are very important to kids and will engage their interest, and so on. And maybe even at the end here, demonstrations, experiments, or our idea of perhaps a MasterChef cooking demonstration. Here is an example of the board games that were created at Girraween Public School, where there's wonderful programs of Hindi and Tamil. And this was a big task-based learning, I think for stage 3. And on the open day at the school, language day, which featured a wonderful concert with performances from all the classes. The school hall was devoted to a huge display of all the games that kids had created as the result of that task-based learning experience. So you can see we've got Scrabble and things like Monopoly and lots of different ideas. Okay, so our third group task has 2 parts. And before you go rushing off, I'd just like to explain those 2 parts. So part 1, I'll just do a little prelude to. This is an example, thanks to a previous student of mine, Tim Ragnage, very talented Chinese teacher, of a task-based learning that he created for stage 3, I think it's stage 3, about community. And he was thinking about the wonderful differences between parks in China and what kids do and parks in Australia. So he set it up as firstly a very interesting intercultural exercise of discovery, but he put up front in his unit, as you do, right at the beginning, we're going to do, right, the goal task. And the kids had a big range of choice of the type of task they could produce. His ideas are there. And the audience, right, for those tasks, the rest of the school or the sister school. And he's got his links to PDHPE to shape the ideas and to give richness and depth to what he's doing and for the kids to perceive that it's part of that learning continuum. And he set his goals of the vocab that he wanted to cover, the type of sentences. And then this is his program, right? This is a sequence of his activities that he created to get kids to the point where they could manage a task in this area. So as you would, you lay the foundations, right? You play with the field through using a range perhaps of visuals, of video clips, of YouTube materials, where you can brainstorm the vocabulary and introduce this exciting and amazing goal task and the choices kids are going to have. And underlining the fact that everything we do in this unit is going to contribute to your presentation. This is a very important concept to motivate over a longer period. All that we're going to do for the next 8 lessons is going to be part of this terrific project. And then he goes about creating a very strong sequence of practice activities. And he's going to include development in all the skill areas and all the syllabus outcomes. So he's going to have speaking and listening and reading, and of course script practice, writing practice for Chinese. And he's going to play with those activities over however many lessons he's devoted to this unit. You can see there he's got a range of games, language practice games. On the buses, Quizlet, card games, ball games. I'm sure you would all have your own favourite repertoire. And then he's thinking of the simple sentence structures that he wants kids to be able to use in this context. A range of questions and answers of verbs and so on. And introducing all the range of activities that are done in parks in China and parks in Australia. He's going to introduce them to a real park, of course, in China with online resources. And he's going to ask the kids themselves to notice, what do you notice, is the best question, for how many things in that Chinese park are different to Australia, which is a great exploration. So he's got very rich processes happening here to feed the kids' imagination, to feed what they will eventually come up with, and feed their strong body of knowledge. Then he thinks, oh, let's go out and use the school playground equipment. And he designs some imaginative drama and acting out skills around the school playground equipment. I think that's a lovely idea. And then, as a collaborative process, he allows kids time in groups to make choices and think about and use their creativity as to what kind of presentation they're going to make. And they're going to report that back to the teacher, and you know, it might need a bit of modification or so on. He's also going to allow some time for the kids to decide what elements should make a good presentation. So in other words, he's going to involve kids in describing the assessment criteria for their own projects. Right? It's a very useful and important step of insight for kids. And then there's a lot of decisions to be made about the nature of how to present their task. All the time he's maintaining class language activities. He is not allowing those processes to take away time from his rich language acquisition. So he's keeping going with his games to consolidate and strengthen language acquisition in every period. He will present a scaffolding model, such as a TV news report or whatever it is, to show the kids what is possible. It's very important to present a model and to identify in that model some language that the kids might like to copy, some strategies that they might like to mimic in their own work. And then there's processes of editing and support to get kids to that final stage of being proud to stand up and know that they have correct language, good language, that's been edited and checked. They are confident in presenting and speaking that language, and they are very excited about the humour or the creativity that they have that is unique to their particular task. So I really like that example, and thanks to Tim Radnich for that. Now, in your group, when you go to it, your first task then is to do the same things, your turn. So you have, you're thinking of doing a TBL in the unit of food and cooking and nutrition. And you're thinking that you will have at the end of this unit, I mean, you might decide something else is more appropriate, but just for our purposes today, you think it'd be really great if you could do a junior master chef cooking presentation with a dialogue. Something simple, manageable, where kids have been empowered with enough language, appropriate language to do this. And it's a very exciting, motivating task. And so I want you to brainstorm together some steps I think we're saying it's stage 3. So you've got a fair bit of language to play with. What are some of the steps in the sequence that you might create to get to a junior MasterChef classroom demonstration of cooking? That's the first part. The second part is I haven't finished yet, Alex. Alex? Right. The second part of this time together, I'd like you to look at some of the entries from a film competition. On YouTube, you can, or on the MLTA, Modern Language Teachers Association New South Wales website, you can find lots of examples of 2-minute movies that kids have submitted to the LinguaFest film competition for all stages 1 to 5. And I think stage 6 are usually too busy. And I want you to look at some and then talk about what kinds of creativity and skills would be involved to make these movies. It's a big question. What kind of creativity have the kids used? What kind of skills? And what qualities might their teachers have to have in order to help them achieve these results? The first example is from stage 3, French, and then you can see there's stage 5, Arabic, or stage 5, Spanish. And I've chosen those stage 5 ones, even though you're mostly primary teachers, but just because they're fun to watch. And they all have subtitles as well too. In LinguaFest, there's always a theme every year and an object that has to be included in the film. So there's like some continuity between them. And I just thought before you go, you might be interested in seeing the criteria that MLTA judges use, which might be the criteria you'd use in class to judge a class film competition. Language accuracy, so that's very, very important, is the language production. The creativity and interpretation of the theme, I believe that should get equal weighting, and the film quality has lesser weighting because you simply might not have the skills base there. They're very interesting. So 2 parts to this time together, filling in or brainstorming that MasterChef sequence of learning towards the film in a food unit, and then having the opportunity to think about short filmmaking as a TBL activity. Okay, now we'll go to groups. And we're coming back. Are we all back?
I think a couple more.
Yes,
Yep.
we're back.
Okay. All right. Just
Yeah,
to finish off, yeah, I really encourage you to try and have a look at some of those student films, because they are quite inspiring. Some are much better than others. Some are weaker. Some are more funny, more creative, would have cost more or may have cost less than others. But, and some have more language in them than others. But in fact, the ones who do best in the film competition always have more language, because that's the biggest criteria for success. But think about the type of skills and the range of creativities that are involved. If we think back to our 16 habits of mind and our clusters of habits of mind, I think we can see risk-taking, we can see creativity, we can see many of the qualities that we identified before as being part of the creativity cluster of habits of mind. So, yeah, I really encourage you to have a go. You don't have to enter into a film competition. You could just start off by experimenting at school. Finally, I just urge you to take the plunge and try a task-based unit at some point next year. Start planning now. If you've got all this semester, this term wrapped up, start thinking about and writing a unit for next year using that very deliberate task-based approach. The teachers that I worked with last year, community language teachers, they almost unanimously said that adopting task-based learning made the biggest difference. That they were quoted as saying the biggest difference to my teaching and creativity and motivation in kids learning. So it's new. If it's not new for you, well, extend yourself a bit further, but I know it is new for many, many teachers, and does take a leap of faith and a bit of courage to get into. But it is a tremendously important new way of activating highly motivated language learning. So I hope I have just thrown a few new ideas at you, and that this might be something that you will try next year to stimulate creativity and rich, active language learning in your students. And with that, I will say goodbye and happy teaching to you all. Happy teaching and learning.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
That's great. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye,
You can
everyone.
all say thank you. That's great.
Thank you.
Thank
That's excellent.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you very much, Robin. I really like it.
Thank you.
All right. Could I ask everybody to stay online? Anybody? There are quite a few questions. I'll just take these this opportunity to answer some of those, just a couple of questions that came up. Now, with regards to the attendance certificate, I sent a link. Alice sent the link. Mine was the one with the little bit of a spelling mistake. But please have a look at it. You've got a Google form. There's going to be one every week. Now that means that every week you just have to fill it in. It's just a couple of questions, just your name and your just basic details. It'll take you 2 seconds, really. I'll keep a record of every person that has come to the sessions. You must attend physically, as it were, live, and then we will count these up. So what it is that if you attend, 3 sessions, you will get one certificate stating that you attended 3 out of the 7 or 4 out of the 7 sessions or 7 of the 7 sessions. Now, if you didn't come, well, you'll have to email me and we'll work something out. Okay. So and I've just got to double check. So email me if you didn't fill out the form last week.
Please.
All right. So we will leave
Alex, if I attend last week but I didn't do in the Google form, so what
Just
happens?
Email me and I'll look after it that way. Okay. It's probably the easiest way that we can do it. Okie dokes. Any other questions? Then my email, of course.
Yes.
My email is in your my email is in the what's his name? Sorry, in all of the emails that were sent out. So look, I'll send it to you right now. Okay. So just bear with me. If you need it, it's Alex.
Alex.
Just bear with me.
This video will be provided to us, right?
Yes, it will.
Thank you.
All right. There we go. So thank you very much. You've got my email there. There will be, like I said in the beginning, like I've said even in the previous one, but you may have missed it. The videos will be available on the New South Wales Federation of Community Language Schools YouTube channel. So just, if you want to Google it, it's NSW FCLS and just YouTube. Okay. Then the rest of it you can see on a Google Classroom, but don't worry about the Google Classroom because that's going to get too messy because there are only so many uploads that I can do at this stage. So just look out for it. But if you email me, I can definitely send you some more details.
Thank you. It was so awesome. Thank you.
I scrolled up earlier on. Last week, your questionnaire was a tick of the sessions you attended. This time it was an actual fill out a form. Is that correct?
It's a lot easier this time.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Not a worry. Not a worry. Okay. We'll leave it at that, everybody. Have a great night.
Good. Thank you.
No worries. No worries, Sammy. Take care, everybody. Good night. I'm going to stop here.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
See you next week.
Thank you.